As Tia said, I'll be talking about the Common Agricultural Policy and Single Farm Payment Overview. It's really it's going to be very quick, and it's a kind of a historical view of what has happened and how things have changed, just to tee it up before we go into the topic of CAP reform. Those outside farming have no idea of the Byzantine complexity of the rules which govern how much support an individual farmer can get. That's a quote from Professor Alan Matthews, who's a commentator on CAP reform. Now, those inside and many of you in the room know how complex it is, but that complexity is impacted as well by all the changes that happen over time, that it never seems to settle for a set period, that it's always changing due to policy demands and public opinion. So if you look back at CAP in the 80s, we had the introduction of milk quota, price supports coming in, intervention, aids to private storage, and all this led to growing food stocks. So we have some farmers protesting there at milk quota, spraying riot police with milk. So hopefully that won't be happening next spring. Then we move on into the 90s and McSharry reforms, and it's the era of butter mountains and wine lakes, and it could be said that intervention and price support was too successful. So we end up with a gentleman there floating on a lake of wine, and also the claims that the EU were distorting world trade. So you had dumping of food and impacting on third world markets, affecting the development of those countries. And coupled with that, we had the GATT agreement, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades. And the idea was that to get the GATT agreement, we'd have to decouple the aid from production. That we couldn't keep doing what we had been doing up to that. So the McSharry reforms then, the idea was that we'd pay farmers directly, the check in the post as it was called, and there was a concept of linking some payments to farm land. So you had the area aid. Tied with that, we had the requirement to submit a map for the land farmed, and the eligible area calculation. So that was grand and simple back then, and as time goes on, that eligible area is becoming more and more important, and off into the future it will still be important. And as any of you out there working with farmers know, there's a review of single farm payment LIPIS numbers now, that's the land parcel identification numbers, and there's issues with the recalculation of eligible areas and ruling out little bits of farmland, and it's creating a lot of work out there. But on the McSharry reforms, what were the schemes? I put these down from memory, so maybe my colleagues in the department will tell me if I'm missing any of them. Suckler cow premium. We had special beef, 10 and 22 month premium. We had the extensification premium, and that was a top-up premium based on having a low stocking rate, and it involved a lot of calculations and 5 census states and farmers gambling as to when to sell stock or buy stock to keep below the stocking rate. We had slaughter premium, we had ewe premium, there was area aid for crops, and there was set aside to reduce some tillage production. So I'd say the set aside was seen as being very negative in terms of stopping people from producing food, you know. So moving on into the 90s then, and the whole idea of freedom to farm, so to get away from the direct payments towards freedom to farm. So all the farm payments were rolled into one. And it was based on the average direct payments claimed in 2000, 2001 and 2002, these are the reference years, and divided by the average land farmed in those same years, 2000, 2001, 2002. So this gave an entitlement, and one entitlement was for each hectare farmed in the reference year. So that's what an entitlement is, it's linked back to a hectare of land. It was established and first drawn down in 2005, and then additionally there was payments on the milk quota held, and there was compensation for loss of sugar beet quota, and this happened later, and there was a national reserve established. One of the things with the single farm payment was there was a fear of sofa farmers, and there's a lady with her son sofa farming away there. I don't think if the figures were looked at that there was too many sofa farmers actually came into place. But there was the ability to trade entitlements by sale or lease, so they became a tradable asset. And with that, there became the complications of potentially VAT and capital gains tax implications on transfer. And there was also modulation, which is a cut in payments above €5,000, and it's currently 10% and goes to the rural development budget. Cross-compliance requirement and good agricultural and environmental conditions rules, and nitrates regulations as well, and also the farmers must apply each year. So in terms of an outlook, single and why we've gone on for CAP reform, I suppose single farm payment is based on very historical payments. We're talking about calculation of figures based on subsidies drawn in 11 to 14 years ago when we move into next year. The single farm payment comes to an end in 14, so entitlements, single farm payment entitlements are finished, they're gone, history in 14. All this has evolved over time due to public pressure, and really we're going through currently undergoing another phase of evolution in this whole process. So the basic payment scheme will be introduced in 2015, and as Andy McGarrigle now from the department will outline, that there's a lot of work to be done on that. There's a lot of calculations and decisions yet to be made on the policy side and on the implementation of that. So over to Andy for all the easy questions now on what's happening in the future after the history.